Hope everybody's got their coffee. And the reason we put these back to back is because they are together, and one without the other is kind of only seeing part of the picture. And so the DOM itself is that elusive beast that everybody discusses with the catchphrase order flow. And there's different ways that you can visualize the orders coming in and out of the market, whether that be where they were, where they're occurring right now, or before they've even transacted. And so that whole process in itself is they're pieces of the puzzle. With the DOM, I believe that a lot of the interest around it is because it's so nuanced, and it can be as complicated as you want it. And as human beings, we think that complicated is more beneficial. And so we're going to take a look at the DOM today in the manner in which I utilize it in a live scenario, the nuances that I'm keying on and focusing on. And what you're going to notice is that, first off, I'm not sitting and watching the DOM 24/7 for 6 years. That's not, in my opinion, going to be the most beneficial way to go about learning this. It is, however, going to be extremely beneficial when it comes to gauging how well your planning is, gauging your entry, gauging the activity upon entry, and how to manage that risk if conditions change. But in order to know any of this, we have to discuss some of the anatomy. The depth of market, or the DOM, as I continue to refer to it, is a central limit order book in the futures market here. That means there's a transparent system to match the bid and the offers based upon price time priority. There's no hidden orders on the DOM, and the orders placed first are the orders that will be filled in that sequence. They can be removed, they can be re-added. Those are things we'll talk about. Now, the bid column is the left blue column next to the middle price. Okay, these are the buyers, while the ask for the red column to the right of the price is the offer of the sellers. The pulling and stacking is the vertical rectangle there. The title is on the top, and that is telling us if the buy or sell limit orders are being removed or canceled, or if they're being added. And the cleanest way that my mind conceptualizes this is thinking of this as the DOM's pulse. This is an immediate lowest time frame activity that is necessary to gauge structural components such as LVNs or pivots or targets, value area high, low, your supports and resistance, areas where there was previously a seller or a large buyer. So if you're looking to buy and nobody else is, then it's probably ideal to wait for a response, a different structure, and vice versa for a sell. The cumulative last trade, cumulative last size, is the tiny rectangle here, okay? And that's showing the sum of the trade volume that has occurred at that price. And it's only displayed at the current price. So whenever there's a change in that price, the cumulative last size is reset and it moves. So there can be a change within the current price back and forth. You may not necessarily see purely by watching the cumulative last size as that's reset, but that is a component that I personally utilize to see who is actually stepping in which direction. And it is a very quick window as it updates. And in my opinion, an important piece of the pull and stack nuance. The spread is the distance between the ask and the bid. Okay. And so in this example, there's only a single tick spread, which whereas during news events, you might see them further separated, multiple ticks or multiple points. And there is some nuance on that, even in Globex, as you see a spread occur, a wider spread, who's actually stepping in, who's closing the spread. And that speaks upon aggression to one side or the other. If that does occur, that's kind of letting you know that there's a propensity to having a thinner book, the book being all the limit orders there. And if it were thinner, then it's more likely to have more variance to either side as orders occur. Order types that we'll discuss consists mainly of, we're going to keep it very simple here, limit and market orders. Okay, I'm going to dive into a few other types, but to start with this, limit orders are the resting orders that you see displayed on the bid in the ask column. However, if an individual places a trade at market, that order fills at the opposite market value for fill. So for example, on this here, you can see the 16 lot offer. And so if a buyer places a market order of 16 lots, they fill that order and price can move up one tick to the next available limit order. Now, so other orders include things like good till date, fill or kill, market on close, limit on close order, those things. And so I'm going to touch on these because I think it's useful to know. But does it serve me in the intraday basis? Not quite. No, not at all. But good till date is an order that remains in the market until it's executed at a specific date. A fill or kill order is an order that must be executed as a complete order immediately, otherwise it's canceled. A market on close order, we hear a lot about this. MOC orders is a market order submitted to be executed as close to the closing price as possible. And the MOC aspect of this, there's different nuance. It doesn't feed to my intraday basis of the way that I utilize things. I'm sure that there are some individuals who do utilize that type of information, but by that time in the day, probably not trading in general. Limit on close order is a limit order to be executed as a market order when the market opens, if the opening price is equal to or greater than the limit price. So it's basically presetting an order before the opening print if it satisfies that requirement. Stop order. These are something that we should be all using. It's an order converted to market once a specified price is attained. So if you set a 2-point stop, that is a limit order that converts to a market. Okay, so if you have a long position, you have a 2-point stop, and it triggers. And if it triggers during a news event and there's nobody there to fill it, it's a market order, so it'll jump down until somebody fills it. This is why you get a 1-tick or so slip in general, sometimes with stops. But during news events, you could have a multi-point. Or even in the case of something we talked about not too long ago, a velocity logic event is when the velocity of the market changes to a certain parameter in a very short period of time, and all your stops are actually removed. And so it's important to understand how the stops are worked, what they mean as you're using them, and just to know that you have a stop there, but you want to make sure it's is it client side, is it not, is it the different aspects around that. An iceberg order, an order whose generally large volume is only partially disclosed. So it's in a category of hidden orders, since they hide their total size by specifying blocks of orders until the entire sum is satisfied. And so we do see iceberg orders coming in. They're typically consistent, repetitive, and of similar quantity. And it's something you can gauge over a very tight range. You can see the iceberg orders coming in. If they have a large volume that needs to be executed on the market, it behooves them to actually split it up. That way they don't cause too much of a shift in that activity. And then a sweep. In the event of a sweep utilizing still this 16 lot order example here, if a buyer places a market order of 100 lots, well, there's not 100 lots sitting here, so they would fill that, fill the next one above, and step into this 3 ticks above, and so it would sweep these ticks, and so these are essentially just pushing one side of the book and sweeping orders that are currently available there because the quantity outreaches what is resting. So that's a sweep. Now, pulling and stacking. I'd like to begin on this by sharing a quote. And the reason I was thinking about this is because I mentioned it to Leo yesterday, is that by Michael Lewis in the book Flash Boys, it says, only offer if the amount on the offer is greater than the historical amount. And basically what it means is if the book is leaning one side heavily, then there's no need to push against the grain. Okay, the pulling and stacking here, this is a cumulative pull stack, and it's limited based upon a certain number of ticks to either side, because I want to see the most immediate response here in the center towards market price. Okay, and it's showing an increase or decrease in the resting volume within that order book. So this is untransacted. In the volume profile section, I discuss volume builds as showing interest in the direction of the build. But with respect to the DOM, the precursor to that transacted volume is simply the ability or willingness of the participants to engage at selected price levels. So fortunately, we can see this, but not only in the numerical fashion, but here, what you can see is visually, there's a display for a nice visual cue to the order activity as it rests on the book. You can place the volume bars behind it to let you know what is being offset and what is becoming heavy. So if you're considering placing risk into the market, it's necessary to have the support on the side you're joining. What I mean is, if you're getting long, you want to see the resting bid growing as price is moving up, as well as the offer removing. One of the cool graphic features here, I can't believe I didn't change this a long time ago, is that by simply changing the color of my pulling of the offer to match the stacking of my bid, and vice versa. Because as you see, for instance, in this example, the stacking of the bid occur here, you'll see the pulling of some of the offer up here, and it flashes that blue. And so that shows strength to the direction of this, but above the market price. Okay. So I'm basically matching, saying, hey, if they're stacking here, that shows me strength. And if they're removing here, I'm matching that color sequence neurologically to be able to visualize this in a clean and quick fashion. And if this were flipped, same way, you would see the numbers like that turn red. And it's a visual cue. That way I can keep my eyes in this zone to gauge the other concepts here that we're going to look at in a very short period of time here. But I want this on the side of my eye to be able to gauge in general the strength and the pulse on either side of the market. So this is the pulse of the market, and the movement, or the blood flow, I guess you could say, comes through your time and sales, or that transacted volume. But this is the heartbeat that gives interest at any given level. So when pulling into a level and we see interest gaining momentum into that level, maybe not the best idea to push against it until you hit some sort of equilibrium and flip of that book. Okay. The cumulative last size, like I mentioned, is that box that moves quickly up and down. All right, showing the volume of trades that occurred at that current price. Now, whenever there's a change in price itself, it does reset, and for that reason, it's meant to show you as the trader that the transacted interest throughout the movement is oscillating in a particular fashion. It is, again, a visual cue to piggyback upon the understanding of the pull stack. And so in this cumulative last size, along with the fluctuations in size of the pull stack, what you will see is whether or not if they begin to take the market bid, then you want to see this continuing in that fashion, pushing up, taking bid, pushing up, taking bid. And as this pushes down and shows offer, not only is it not making progress, but it's equally matched with volume against and initiation with. And so there's different ways to organize DOMs in general. The more columns you have does not make you better at reading it. In this here, you can see a very naked sense of this, having the pull stack, the cumulative last size, the raw DOM itself, and a volume profile. Now, the cumulative last size can be offset in visualizing a resetting delta that is occurring. And that, based upon your provider or your software, you can have it showing delta that's refreshing every number of ticks or version and so forth. Personally, since I have a footprint, I'm also seeing that delta in general. But mainly, matching this here, that allows me that clean initial look at this that I can get back against the footprint, which you'll talk about after the next section. But managing your understanding of who is or where the most interest, the resting interest is coming in against what's actually being transacted here. And then finally with the time and sales. Now sweep, like I mentioned, this is a very extreme example because I want it to be very clear, is that if an order comes through and on the other side, there's not enough quantity to satisfy it, it will sweep the book all the way up on the other side until it is satisfied. This is an example from the NFP in September. And so we're going to look at that example exactly, but this is what a sweep would look like, okay? And on your tape, you'd see it highlight teal in this example, but and I'll explain what that means in the next section. But a sweep is when an order comes in and there's not enough on the other side to satisfy that order. Therefore, it has to move up the book until it's satisfied. Okay. Some other concepts and basic concepts here. Large orders, resting liquidity. So large orders on the book, there's no way to know their intention. And it is exciting to see large orders come in, but in all honesty, you have to see them interact. And not only interact, you have to see them after the interaction, whether or not they fill, first off, and then upon filling, if they do so, whether or not they replace or refresh, and how the surrounding activity, particularly in your pull stack response, are they running out of fuel on the one side or the other? It's a good way to kind of gauge the exhaustion. We talked about a ledge in the volume profile section. So if you have a very large order, it comes down and fills it, and we create a ledge and it's protecting that, and we have temporary exhaustion. I said that ledge becomes a line in the sand for reversion if they're not able to push through that temporary exhaustion and keep it below. So let's say at this 39.55, there were 2,000 lots there, right? And they filled them and it created a ledge. All right. And it pushed up into an area of no interest, like an LVN. And then they reinitiated, came down through, pushed the ledge. They've actually completed the auction at that point. And once they get back above, if they're refreshing the bid on that to drive it, then you can see the intent of that original order. And that's why that ledge would become a line in the sand for that type of activity. So a resting large order, resting liquidity, can act as a magnet. It could also drop the bottom out of things if it was pushing down into a large order and that just removed. Then you're talking about, people potentially driving into it, and then you don't have the liquidity on the other side, which causes acceleration. Layering and iceberging are different, but layering is a stacking of large orders that are spread into a zone instead of grouping them as a single order, and that's similar to an iceberg, whereas iceberging is typically a lot more order repetition, and layering can be grouped into the same category as them, even though it doesn't have to be iceberging, and specifically with the same thinking that iceberging would be a large order that's broken up into sequence. Layering can be multiple different participants that are grouped in a particular zone. Reloading is it's simply refreshing or refilling of the one side of the bid of the offer with the orders. And so, for instance, like this 102, this 100, if it comes down and fills this 100, it pushes up and that turns into another 100. That's refilling. It's resetting that zone. It's replacing and it's reloading that area. So absorption, the logical next step, is the passive buying or selling. I just explained reloading as an example. And so if they continually reload, they're passively buying that because the offer has to step down to fill them. They're passively buying that. And absorption is the passive buying or selling that occurs when a limit order participant allows that filling to happen. And it's accompanied by reloading. So reloading and absorption, same class. They don't have to be together, but a lot of times with absorption, you need reloading. And then finally, initiative activity. Initiative activity is aggressive. It's aggressive market participant action, and it's seen most easily in areas of absorption. Whether that is absorption is successful or not. Basically, if let's say for here, if the buyers were successfully absorbing and reloading this zone, and price begins to move up, and then all of this reloading starts to step up with it and initiate in the direction of that absorption, then that would be a successful absorption. Otherwise, if they were reloading and absorbing indefinitely, but there is an overwhelming offer and it's just going to push through them, then the initiation can be against that attempt to absorb. So this is why even something like, and I know Leah's going to talk about offsides delta, or we've talked about offsides delta or imbalances in that manner. This is the initiation can be in either direction. It doesn't just have to be in the direction of absorption. Here's an example of absorption with reloading. Let this reload here. So these orders down here, want to see them push in, fill. And basically, when this resets here, you're going to see at this 2 ticks from the bottom at this 903 3/4, there's a large order. They continually reload. You can see the volume growing here, and they're absorbing that zone. Even in the event where we see them reaching under before they begin to try to initiate this here, an initiation then follows with these 100 lots stepping up and in. Keep your eyes on the pull stack to see the strength on either side. You can see it thinning on the offer side and growing on this side. Going back to the prior one, you can see that is stronger here on the offer. And you want to see them then pull or this change. See that growing in here? So this is an attempt to absorb, which is followed by, you can see that thin through there, initiation where that thins out in the pulling and stacking for the offer. And they grow interest here on the bid side. Not only that, but it begins to step up, and you can see these large orders begin stepping up piece by piece and not just sitting at a particular level. They're actually chasing and moving up with price. In this example here, there's pulling of the offer stepwise and upward stacking of the bid. So this is a resting response. Gotta wait for the thing to reset. Let me try this. So see this 453, 455. So we want to see that fill. And this would be simply gauging a large order here for that activity. So that 446 down to 39.10. We're going to use this example here moving forward as well. So from there, we can see several down here in the attempt to try through here, the 76, 70, and then it starts to shift. started to shift the presence of that stacking there. Whereas on the offer side, you can see that continually staying pretty steady and pressing. They fill this here. And then there's an attempt to reload and refresh that. So a resting response would be something like that. You have that 123 offer here. You want to see how this does in here with that 70 that continues to reload. Well, how they do there, they pull and they fill that guide through there, and then they begin to stack them in. Here's another one with these 230s that are untouched. And this is the same sequence where we had that 450 so. And then down in here, let me take it back and bring it in. See this 100 lot come in just above, a couple ticks in front here, and then they start to flip. So underneath that 450 lot order, what you had was a layering here, okay? And then there were multiple 70 lots and 100 lots through here that go ahead and work to get filled in front of this aspect, and these remain untouched. And so this is another aspect of that resting response. Even though that has occurred up here at the 3910s, looking just around that zone to see who else is sneaking in behind it, to see if that activity is truly going to be an initiative response. Because if it was to initiate and push further, you would see them stepping down and into these orders to fill them and not leaving them untouched. Initiative activity looks like this, where they're stepwise coming in 160s, 190s. Let's see them continually stepping up. So as this resets, twos, watch through here, and 30. Stepping in. You can see this over here as well. Kind of flash you to keep your eyes on track. And then they initiate and move up the chain. So in the zone here, what you have is reloading. I'll restart that again. And you see this through pull stack. You are offset heavy to the bid side. And through here, they continually reload this immediate zone until they decide to take price out of the zone by stepping up with that activity. The big takeaway here is look at the girth of your pull stack versus on the bid side versus the offer. They're letting them step down in. They're allowing that. They're accommodating the offer. They're accommodating until they don't. And when the offer pulls, you see that turn blue, and that begins to allow for initiation to push up into the segment. Absorption down here. Missed it. There we go. There's 166 lots at that 3910. Okay, this was, here we go. Right here. Watch here at the 3910 level. And what we'll get is a reload into that. Boom, right there. Tag and reload. Coming in there, and then initial signs of initiation through there. So I know that seems like you got to sit and watch this and let your eyeballs bleed out a lot. But one of the things that has helped me a lot seeing this on the fly, and not just retrospectively, is visualizing the cumulative pull stack in this manner, because as these nuances change, these numbers shift on the DOM, which you want to see them interacting. It can highlight here just off to the corner of your eye and let you see them replacing, reloading. And then with your cumulative last size, you can see them working to step in. And if they're slamming this offer down in and they're not making any progress, and you see them reloading this, then that's when you really know you're in a more key area of absorption. And then finally here, this is NFP. So hold on, take a look at this. So down here, I scrolled down initially on this because you have several very large orders down low. The book is non-existent. These guys were sitting down there the whole time. Okay. And this is a news example from initiation and absorption. It does not mean that you dive in and trade this stuff. You know, that's not where longevity in trading comes from. But seeing this type of activity helps really make sense of a move as it has occurred. So this here, when this resets, see them initiating, stepping up with it. When this resets, when this GIF resets, you'll see me scroll down initially before it starts. You'll see those large orders sitting there, and then we'll see the price activity go dive down, tag, and then it's here. Watch right there. See that? And then it dives down. It'll tag after the initial madness, and then after that tag, we'll get multiple 100 lots, 250 lots stepping in, and then chasing and initiating right here. Okay, we got some there, and then they increase in size as we get going right here. And it's going nuts. Watch when they step in, you see them. Yep. See how the book went full, just bid side there. I mean, offer completely pulled, and they're getting soft. We got this 200 lot stepping in, this one behind it. Now they're initiating. Watch them step in above. There you go, just like that. So the reason I put this one out there is because it's so vastly thin. It's so thin that that you can really get an idea of the concept and how drastic the pull stack can really speak to you. And I'm not saying get out there and just trade news events, but replay them and see the activity, because coming down into that absorption there, it was full offer on that pull stack until it just went blue. After they transacted them and got trapped, then they just completely flipped. You see it through there. And so you see that blue even above and in the offer side, that's not showing any sign of strength with that. All right. So coming back to this, the pull stack is me showing this pulse back and forth around that market price. We want to see how these orders interact. Okay. We don't want to put a lot of weight on just any one resting order. We want to see how they react when they get there, how much other activity comes into play. And then finally, when they do, we want to start looking for things in our favor, like a sweep. Okay, that shows that we're on the right side of things. We'll look at some sweeps here shortly. Oh, here we are with the Q&A. Sorry, I got excited. I was bouncing around just looking at it. I'm all fired up. Okay. Do we have any questions? Hold on one second. Hey, Job. When a stop market order is entered and therefore filled simultaneously, that means it never would even show up on the DOM, right? And what percentage of activity comes from market stop orders? No, yeah, correct. It's not going to show up on your DOM, but it will show up on your time and sales. And so if you look at something like a stop run, which we're going to look at here in the time and sales section, although you're not going to see that as a limit order in the book, when it triggers, you can see some of this. And so you ever seen, I know there's been several examples today around structural things. Earlier, Odds was speaking about here's where we located a seller, and then you wouldn't want to be going long on this breakout because we had identified a seller there. And so he showed an example of more or less a stop run reversal. And so in that zone, what you would see is a bunch of market buy orders where potentially some other stops got triggered. And being that there was no follow through, you'd have more of that like A type profile sequence where there's nobody else to step up and grab it and run with it. Therefore, it's got to come down to where there actually are some buyers. When you're studying previous DOM replays, are you utilizing the Sierra replay, or are you video recording your screen? I'm utilizing Sierra replay. And if you right click at any point on a date, you can select download depth data from date, and you can and have all that depth in order to interact with and visualize around events. You can isolate a bunch of news events and just spend a night looking at those. You can isolate where the auction legs occur and see how those rotations actually occur. If there's a area of interest, a support and resistance level that you've been monitoring over time, but they're at different days that you've seen it, well, you can go back to those specific days and times and watch who was there and what they did. For example, if you wanted to initiate a sweep higher, do you just tally up how many contracts you sweep by a certain level and just hit it? Yeah. Now understand with routing speed and so forth, there's plenty of time for that to come back and hit you back. But yeah, that's essentially what would occur is if you had a market order in that was greater than the quantity available on the offer, X amount of ticks, and you wanted to sweep that book, there you go. No other questions on that, I see. Great.
Do you want to take?
Let's take 5.
5. Okay.
Yeah, let's take 5. We'll be right back.